Eric Riz here, six-time MVP, founder and chief executive officer of MP Cubicle, a data verification platform for resumes, and really now very much analytics focused around truthful information, content, resumes, employers, candidates, all that good stuff, as well as about 20 years or so of Office 365 and SharePoint expertise. Well, adoption is one of those very tricky components of any implementation at an enterprise level, because it's really something that goes right back to the sales cycle and the product market fit almost of what's been bought to what's been deployed to how it's been deployed to how it's being used by the organization, going all the way back to initial pain points and what they tried to address in the sales cycle initially. All of these things work into the adoption conversation now. So many people are concerned about how the front end of adoption works, meaning how do I use it? How do I touch it? How do I make SharePoint work? How do I make 365 work? How do I make Teams work? These are the questions being asked now. Hey, we just want it to work and be deployed. So really to me, from my lens right now, the conversation is really focused around an understanding and creating clear expectations of what the products are there to do and how they fit within the organization. That's a critical component of adoption right now. To me, adoption is fundamentally the word is how has this been adopted across the organization. Just because it's been adopted doesn't mean it's engaging people. So I might know how to use something and use it to fulfill a requirement of my job, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily engaging to me and or something that I do more than I'm required to do it. So to me, the measure of success for SharePoint or 365 is an understanding of and recognition of doing one's job on a day in, day out basis from the platform and engaging on that level. And it's fundamentally different between adoption and engagement. So many people, at the executive level, the indicators are always things like key performance. Show me my KPIs, show me my dashboard, show me my metrics of what people are using, how they're using it, and whether or not they're being effective in their job. In truth, it's a pretty simple conversation to have. You look at something like a KPI report, you look at the hits, you look at the throughput of content, you look at how databases have grown, how OneDrive spaces have grown, the overall measurement of what's being used across the organization, and there's an obvious recognition or spike on the curve to show whether or not people are using the products, yes or no. I'm working with a client right now who's having that exact issue. They were looking at moving over terabytes of content from OneDrives and from OneDrive for Business, of course, which is going away, as well as just hard drives and shared drives to a better world. And the questions are, hey, how does Teams incorporate with that? Can you give me a quick fix? Can you push a button to make all this available somewhere else? And again, it goes back to the adoption and engagement conversation. Understanding the life cycle, understanding what expectations should be put into place to try to measure achievement are two very different things. Just because somebody goes to a particular place in the cloud to find a document does not mean they're engaging. It just means you've moved it from point A to point B, and now you've got to actually engage with that content. So there's a lot to be said around adoption, engagement, and true measurement of content and usage. That's probably a 3-hour answer to what is a very simple question. I 12 years ago put together this journey of what any organization can do to implement SharePoint. At the time, just SharePoint. And it was 2007 at that point that we were working with and dealing with. Of course, some clients are still working and dealing with that. But the phrase digital workplace is something that hadn't really been adopted yet. And I'm not really sure it's been adopted now, to be quite honest. It's a dream for a lot of organizations. The smaller the company, private companies, great, we're digital, we have a digital workplace, things are wonderful. You look at banks, insurance companies, large telcos, large finance companies, they're on products and software that's 10 years old. A digital workplace is something that's a dream for them if they even know and understand what it is. It's not something that they're going to have. There's no bleeding edge deployments or software there. So digital workplace is something that really needs to fit an organization and make sense for that organization. You can't take the digital workplace, that being my ability to be functional on a day in, day out basis with just a laptop and everything I need connected to that laptop, no pen, no paper, no other devices, just one laptop, one device, go do what you need to do on a daily basis. That's a wonderful environment. That's a digital workplace where everyone's engaged, where no phones are picked up, where everything is done through central collaborative functionality and products like Teams. That's a digital workplace. But for so many, it's something that they're not going to have for some time. So there's a huge juxtaposition between understanding and truthful deployment and usage. But I'm in a penless society now. I used to be a huge note taker. If I didn't write it down, it didn't get done. Now things just don't get done. That's a different problem. But everything happens on my laptop, on my phone, on my device, and I can be as effective on a plane as long as I have Wi-Fi as I am in my office. So that's true effective adoption of products, and it's easy to measure because you recognize that everything you need is contained within one box, one cycle. And hopefully that's something that people can achieve as organizations mature and grow, but there's recognition now that a lot of organizations are a long way off. And as we see more and more organizations starting to use and adopt Teams, we're seeing that they're getting it wrong more often than they're getting it right. And that's okay, because I'd rather talk to a client who has tried it and has failed, or who has just done a toe dip to try to understand what the functionality looks like, than somebody who hasn't touched it at all and thinks that we're going to come in with the be all and end all of communicative products and make life better for them. There's way too much that has to be done from the get-go to make things work. You can't just snap your fingers and say, okay, everything has to go through Teams now. It doesn't work at all. Actually, one of the things that I enjoy most out of the Teams video conversation and getting those videos and recording straight from meetings is the transcription right after. And it's pretty accurate. I don't know the percentage exactly, but it's very accurate in terms of what it's providing. And the ability to go back and I know that I said this somewhere in the middle of the conversation, but I don't remember exactly what I said, because I go off the cuff and I just said something. You can go back in, take exactly that excerpt, dump it into an email, send it to your client, say, look, this is what we committed to, this is what I said, this was the spec, this was whatever piece of information we were referring to, and this is the direct quote. You don't have to tell them that, but this is what I said, and there you go. So, that probably takes 20, 30 minutes away from having to go back, find the exact point, recognize exactly what I said, write it down, and then provide it to somebody else. So the AI conversation, which I just read some statistics yesterday about here in Canada, 70% of people are ready for AI. I don't know what that means, but they're ready for AI from a consumptive perspective. That's wonderful. Doesn't mean anything, but as the tools are getting better and better, it's going to be an interesting 10, 20, 30 years as these products really mature and more things come into users and consumers' hands. Well, everyone's using it differently, obviously. And yes, you're absolutely right. It was SharePoint as far as growth, and then it was 365, and now it's Teams. Now, it's as much as I hate to use the phrase, perception is reality. So when it comes to collaborative, communicative topics and products, how organizations perceive it is how they use it. If you perceive Teams to be just another place where I put stuff and can connect to my document management and send a quick chat to find out who's going to have lunch with me, then that's all you're going to use it for. It's a start and stop conversation. If you see it as the operating system that it truly can be, from an individual basis, from a corporate perspective, then that's what you'll use it for. You'll use it for everything. And I've seen I've seen consulting firms and I've seen customers and clients all use it very effectively in both scenarios. So it really just depends on the maturity of the organization and what that company actually does. Yes, the short answer is yes. Next question, thank you. The customer success manager, now, of course, you ask 10 people, you'll get 20 opinions. This is a standard consultative type of response. To me, first and foremost, yes, the customer success manager is a critical role to have, no question. Why? Because too many projects and too many products die after implementation because no one's maintaining them. If you have a project that has been, the resources of which have been seconded into that project, when the implementation is done, so too is the support. And that's part of why adoption fails in so many organizations. So the customer success manager is the person who is responsible for maintaining that implementation going forward and ensuring that the users are truly engaged and truly getting their questions answered. As soon as an implementation is done, whether it's SharePoint 365, Teams, or anything else, your users are going to have questions. And remember that everybody in the organization is a user. So asking your C-suite what their questions are is as important as asking the janitor or the custodian what his or her questions are. Critically important. And it's up to that customer success manager to try to deliver against the overall mandate and what people are expecting for responses. And of course, having the knowledge share and having a place to record all of that content and all those answers is super important from a center of excellence perspective as well. Setting some objectives, first and foremost, is critical. Understanding what the business needs and what people need and delivering against that is super important. You won't have success if you don't know where you want to go with the product. That's more of a success perspective. But the second part of it is use the tools. The easiest route to failure is not touching the tools and then deploying and saying, here you go, we're a Teams environment now, boom. It's January the 2nd, everyone's back from holidays, and now we use Teams and that's it. Don't talk to anybody in the hallways, just send them a Teams chat and have that conversation. No, you've got to dog food it. Microsoft's famous phrase, you've got to dog food it. You've got to use it. You have to measure against your own corporate objectives and deliver product that makes sense, which means even if you've got one group and one team, I hate to say it, but one team using Teams, they're the ones who become your adoption ecosystem and your epicenter for the organization. They're the ones who will retain and use the product going forward. They're the ones who will work with others in the organization, become the subject matter experts to provide the expertise. You've got to use it in order for it to be deployed correctly within any organization. I don't care if you're 5 people or 55,000 people, you have to use it. Anybody who's seen me speak or knows me well knows that I love my car analogies. I'm a car guy, and all my business analogies come back to car analogies. And when you think about it, for those that drive, how did you learn how to drive? You didn't learn how to drive by watching 24 Hours of Le Mans on TV. You learned how to drive by, well, you may have, but you learned how to drive by getting behind the wheel and going to a parking lot or going to wherever you wanted to go when it was empty, hopefully. And you started to figure it out for yourself, hopefully with some supervision, perhaps adult supervision. But you learned the small way. You learned by taking what is 2% of driving, and you figured it out. And when you got comfortable, you went up to 4%, 5%, and 10, and then 20, and then 30, and now you're doing 24 Hours of Le Mans yourself. That's a great analogy for any type of deployment. No one expects you to use everything on day one. It's not achievable, it's not conceivable. And if anyone's making that suggestion for you, then you should send them our way, because there's a big problem with that conversation. Start by doing the simple things, by using the simple introductory steps and tools that make sense for you, for your organization, whatever it is, and then move from there when you have complete comfort.